The sun of Zyphora blazed over the jagged arena, turning the sand into molten gold that made every spectator squint and grumble. Liara stood in the center, her long ears twitching nervously, trying not to imagine the council's executioner waving a plasma blade above her head like a particularly aggressive chef. "Well," she muttered under her breath, "if I survive this, I'll need a serious vacation." A ripple of whispers ran through the crowd. "Look at her ears," one spectator said. "She's like a human but enhanced. Or cursed, depending on how the day goes." Another scoffed. "If the council wants to make an example, at least they picked someone photogenic." Liara rolled her eyes and tried to remember the self-defense drills she'd practiced since childhood. The executioner raised the blade, sparks dancing along its edge. He had the theatrics down to perfection, slow, deliberate, like he was auditioning for a hollow drama. Liara's heart thumped. She focused on the council members watching from their high dais, their cold eyes almost as sharp as the weapon about to meet her neck. Suddenly, a blur in the crowd caught her eye. A human, obviously out of place in the desert robes and layered armor of Zyphora's citizens, vaulted over the barrier with the grace of someone who had never been trained for grace. He tripped over the sandy edge, arms flailing, and landed flat on his face in front of the executioner. Liara blinked. Did he just? "Yes," the man muttered, rolling over and giving a thumbs up from the sand. "I volunteer as, entertainment." He scrambled up, waggled a finger at the executioner, and somehow disarmed him by knocking the plasma blade into a sand dune. Sparks fizzed and hissed, and the crowd gasped. What are you?" Liara whispered, not sure whether to be annoyed or relieved. "Name's Elias," the human said, brushing sand from his jacket. "Intergalactic do-gooder, part-time hero, full-time hazard magnet." He gestured at the stunned executioner now covered in sand. "Don't worry, pal. You'll have another chance, maybe somewhere less dramatic." Liara's lips twitched. "You call this a rescue?" Elias grinned. "Technically, yes. But let's call it an interim improvisation." He offered a hand. "Come on, we've got to move before the council realizes their shiny toy just got stolen." Liara hesitated for a heartbeat, then grasped his hand. Her ears twitched at the sensation of someone else's warmth. The crowd erupted into shouts, some cheering, some shouting warnings. Hoverdrones whirred, scanning for the escapees. "Quick tip," Elias said as they sprinted. "Never assume drones have a sense of humor." "They don't." Liara raised an eyebrow, duly noted. They ducked behind a sand dune, where the wind whipped around them like a tiny sandstorm. Liara's hair whipped across her face, and Elias tried to brush it back. He failed spectacularly, looking more like he was wrestling a particularly aggressive tumbleweed. Liara stifled a laugh, the first in what felt like hours. Her long ears twitched in amusement. "You're unusually clumsy for someone claiming to rescue me," she said, trying not to smile too wide. "Clumsy is just my cover story," Elias said, hopping over a jagged rock. "It makes people underestimate me. Works about 50% of the time." Liara snorted. "I'm impressed or terrified." They ran through the lower streets of the city, where neon signs flickered, showing holo ads for alien delicacies, cybernetic enhancements, and the occasional vacation planet. A vendor shouted, "Fresh Zyphorian sand fruit, buy one, escape death." Elias grabbed a piece, took a bite, grimaced, and handed it to Liara. "Emergency rations, not gourmet." Liara couldn't help but laugh. "You think of everything, don't you?" "Mostly afterthoughts," Elias admitted, wiping sand from his face. "But hey, improvisation is my specialty." They ducked into a narrow alley and paused, catching their breath. Drones hummed above, scanning, searching. Liara leaned against a wall, her long ears flattening slightly in frustration. "Why do humans always make things look so chaotic?" "Because if it looks neat, nobody believes you're saving lives," Elias said with a grin. He extended his hand again. "Ready for round two?" Liara took it, her fingers brushing his. The electric touch of survival and something else, unspoken, passed between them. "Let's go," she said, her voice firmer. As they sprinted into the deeper labyrinth of the city, the neon lights cast shifting shadows across Liara's ears, making them gleam almost like they were alive. Elias tripped again, cursed loudly, and laughed as he picked himself up. Liara rolled her eyes, but the corner of her mouth twitched into a genuine smile. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to hope, not just for escape, but for the strange, reckless human who had decided her death was unacceptable. Even if he was a walking disaster, he had saved her life. And for now, that was enough. The city stretched ahead, full of dangers, secrets, and impossible choices. But Liara and Elias ran together, a mismatched pair bound by chance, wit, and the bizarre sparks of fate. Somewhere between plasma drones, sandstorms, and clumsy heroics, something new had begun, something neither of them could have predicted. The hovercar hissed as it lifted off the cracked streets of Zyphora, the engine whining like a disgruntled alien cat. Elias gripped the controls, swearing under his breath as the craft shuddered violently. "I told you," he said, glancing at Liara, "this thing handles like a moon goat on roller skates." Liara's long ears twitched as she leaned forward. "A moon goat on roller skates. You humans really do have the strangest metaphors. You try inventing analogies while your life is on the line," Elias shot back, narrowly dodging a hovering patrol drone. Sparks flew as it brushed the side of the vehicle. "See, that's called dramatic flair." Liara's hands clenched the edges of the seat. "I see death's dramatic flair just fine, thank you." The hovercar jumped over a jagged dune, nearly flipping, and Elias cursed again. "Relax, it's just physics playing hard to get." Liara arched an eyebrow. "You call almost getting us killed physics playing hard to get?" He grinned, white-knuckling the controls. "Yes, it's my charming way of keeping you entertained." They sped across the desert wastes, neon remnants of Zyphora's abandoned cities flickering in the distance. Elias jabbed at a button, deploying a smoke flare that made the pursuing drones veer off course. "Nothing like fireworks to throw off automated assassins," he said. Liara let out a sharp laugh, the sound echoing over the metallic hum of the hovercar. "You're insane and lucky." "Insane is just another word for highly motivated," he said. "Lucky is a side effect." They approached a canyon that glowed faintly under the twin moons. "That's our shortcut," Liara said, nodding toward the jagged cliffs. "But it's a bit tricky. Lots of magnetic anomalies, makes vehicles behave unpredictably." Elias blinked at the canyon, then glanced at Liara's twitching ears. "Tricky as in, we'll survive, or tricky as in, hold onto your organs?" "Let's call it an adventure," she said with a sly smile. The hovercar careened into the canyon, magnetic fields tugging it left and right. Elias yelped as the vehicle jerked violently. "I feel like a pinball in zero gravity." Liara's ears flicked with amusement. "You humans are too loud for dramatic moments." A holographic sign flickered on the canyon wall, warning of unstable grav pockets ahead. Elias swerved violently. "Warning noted," he shouted. "Optional." Liara laughed, the sound oddly musical in the metallic canyon. "Optional," she repeated, shaking her head. They cleared the canyon, skimming over luminescent rock formations that pulsed like veins of light. Elias swerved again, narrowly avoiding a collapsing arch. "Okay, that one was definitely optional," he said, laughing despite the tremor in his voice. "You're insane," Liara said, but her smile betrayed her amusement. Eventually, the hovercar reached a narrow gorge where the terrain leveled. Elias slowed, breathing heavily. "Well," he said, "if we survive, I think we deserve medals, or at least a drink." Liara tilted her head. "A drink, after nearly dying multiple times." "Celebratory adrenaline beverage," he explained. "Technically a thing." They pulled the hovercar behind a jagged rock outcrop. The drones had lost them, circling far above. Elias leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "We made it, barely. And by barely, I mean a solid 12 points on a human death scale." Liara's ears twitched in amusement. "Death scale, you're keeping score." "Of course," Elias said, counting on his fingers. "Round 1, execution. Round 2, hovercar canyon chaos. I'd say we're even. Liara shook her head. You're impossible. He grinned. Impossible is my brand. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by the faint hum of distant drones. Liara turned toward Elias, studying him. His human quirks, reckless, chaotic, infuriating, somehow made him dependable in a way no one else had been. Why did you really save me? She asked quietly. Elias shrugged, looking out over the desert. Call it habit, call it morality. Mostly, though, I didn't like the idea of letting someone with amazing ears die. Liara blinked, momentarily caught off guard. My ears. Yeah, he said with a smirk. They're fantastic. Plus, they twitch at the right moments. Very useful for gauging danger. She snorted. Useful. You're basing life-saving decisions on my ears now. Don't knock it, he said. Ears are like radar, style, and warning system rolled into one. Totally practical. Liara shook her head but couldn't hide a smile. For the first time since her capture, the tension eased. Even in the middle of a desert full of deadly drones and magnetic anomalies, humor found a way in. Elias glanced at her, fingers still hovering over the controls. Next stop. Liara leaned back, letting her long ears flick lazily. A safe house, somewhere hidden, somewhere the council can't find us, somewhere civilized. Elias laughed. Civilized, sure. I think I can manage that, maybe with some alien pastries. Alien pastries, Liara said, raising an eyebrow. Exactly. Inedible, indestructible, and technically edible, he said, grinning. Liara laughed again, a musical, light-hearted sound that made the tension of the last hours feel like a distant shadow. You humans are infuriating, she said. And you aliens, he replied, are hilarious, especially the ones with ears that function as mood indicators. Together, they set off across the desert, two unlikely fugitives bound by survival, humor, and the chaotic rhythm of their journey. The twin moons cast long shadows over the dunes, and for the first time in days, Liara allowed herself to feel hope, not just for escape, but for the strange, reckless human who had decided that her life was worth saving. The hidden entrance to the city yawned before them like a dark, metallic mouth, humming with a low-energy pulse. Liara pressed a series of touchpads with practiced ease, each of her long fingers moving faster than Elias could track. The outer door hissed and slid open, revealing a labyrinth of corridors bathed in soft bioluminescent light, the walls alive with tiny pulses like a heartbeat. You really know how to pick safe houses, Elias said, stepping cautiously inside. I mean, most people just rent apartments. You pick glowing alien mazes. Liara shot him a sidelong glance, her ears flicking with amusement. Most people also don't get executed for knowing too much. Point taken, he said, brushing dust off his jacket. But seriously, glowing corridors, that's like a disco for existential dread. She chuckled, shaking her head. It's the best the city offers. Besides, it's easier to hide here than in a place with furniture and boring floors. They moved deeper, the walls shifting as if alive, revealing passageways and rooms that, as night, or the city's version of night, fell, they found a quiet chamber with walls that shimmered like liquid metal. They sat together, their shoulders brushing. You're infuriating, Liara said softly. And you're mesmerizing, Elias replied. Her ears twitched. Flattery won't get you out of death traps, you know. No, but it does make the journey a lot more fun, he said. The lights dimmed, the holograms casting soft glows across their faces. In that hidden city, amidst ancient knowledge and futuristic technology, they realized something unspoken had begun. Trust, camaraderie, and maybe something more complicated, hovering quietly between them. Elias yawned dramatically. Tomorrow we figure out how to stay alive. Tonight we celebrate our minor victories and my brilliant sense of humor. Liara shook her head, still smiling. You're impossible. And you, he said, grinning, are spectacularly patient. They shared a brief, quiet laugh. The tension of the hunt momentarily lifted. Outside, drones continued their patrols, but inside the alien city, two fugitives allowed themselves a fleeting peace, knowing that the danger was far from over. but also knowing they could face it together. The chamber trembled with low-frequency vibrations, and Liara's ears twitched sharply. "They're here," she whispered, her long fingers tracing the edges of a holographic map. The council didn't waste time. Elias looked up from inspecting a hovering data orb. "They never do, but hey, what's life without a little excitement, right?" Liara shot him a look that could slice through titanium. "Your optimism is terrifying." "Thank you," he said, grinning. "I practice daily." The outer doors of the city shuddered, and then exploded inward in a controlled detonation, sending smoke curling into the corridors. Metallic footsteps echoed as a strike team in sleek black armor advanced, their helmets glowing with scanning visors. Elias yelped and ducked behind a levitating console. "Okay, professional question. Do we run, hide, or punch our way out like amateur action heroes?" Liara's eyes narrowed, all three in sequence, and try not to scream. Elias peeked around the console. "Screaming is my signature move. I'm afraid it's genetically encoded." Liara activated a holographic projector. The room shimmered, and multiple illusions of themselves appeared, each waving comically or dancing wildly. One illusion even pulled out a banana and waved it at the incoming soldiers. Elias guffawed. "I like the banana, it's subtle." The strike team advanced cautiously, scanning the illusions. Lasers sizzled as they fired at holographic projections, their blasts passing harmlessly through the dancing figures. "Distraction works," Liara said, flicking her ears in satisfaction. Elias grabbed a small device, pressing buttons at random. A series of levitating platforms sprang from the floor, flipping and rotating unpredictably. "Whoops, or genius, depending on perspective," he said, hopping onto one as it shot him toward the ceiling. Liara grabbed his arm midair, ears twitching in amusement. "You're lucky I caught you, again." "You'd better get used to it," he said, dangling upside down. "I'm like a human piñata of chaos." They sprinted down a twisting corridor, dodging patrols and activating traps that sent the intruders sliding into walls or tripping over energy nets. Elias jabbed a button, releasing a swarm of tiny drones that projected holographic duplicates of him, spinning and waving. "This is my encore." Liara couldn't help but laugh, her long ears flicking in rhythm with her amusement. "You're absurd," she said, pulling him toward a side passage. "And yet effective," he countered, grinning. They reached a chamber filled with crystalline nodes pulsing with blue energy. Liara tapped the nearest node, creating a shimmering force field that blocked the corridor behind them. "This should slow them down," she said. "Should?" Elias asked, raising an eyebrow. "Should," she confirmed. A blast of energy hit the force field, making it ripple and hum. Elias ducked dramatically. "Wow, that was loud. My hair might be standing on end." "Or not because, space helmet hair issues." Liara rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. "Focus, the path ahead." They moved through a narrow shaft, the walls glowing faintly with energy conduits. Elias tripped over a loose panel. "Okay, maybe I'm not good at the walking part of escape sequences," he admitted, hopping to his feet. "Noted," Liara said, smirking, "but you're great at causing confusion." As they reached a vertical lift that would take them to the city's outer edge, Liara tapped a sequence into the control panel. The lift rose smoothly, carrying them above the chaos below. From their vantage point, they could see the strike team struggling against holographic duplicates, tripping over traps, and occasionally sliding into one another in a blur of armor and sparks. Elias leaned over the railing. "I think we just invented the art of interstellar slapstick combat." Liara chuckled softly. "You have a talent for that, I admit." The lift shuddered as it reached the top. Elias held onto the railing, pretending to sway dramatically. "Coming through, hero in progress." At the top, a narrow aerial bridge led to a smaller craft hidden in the shadows. "Our ride," Liara said, leading the way. Elias jogged beside her, nearly tripping over a power conduit. "This is turning into my favorite escape ever. Maybe because it's not my first or second or fourth, actually." "Try not to count," Liara advised. They reached the craft and quickly engaged the anti-detection cloak. The strike team arrived moments later at the bridge, only to find an empty walkway, the faint echoes of laughter from holographic duplicates mocking them. "They're ghosts," one soldier shouted, "or clever humans." "Ghosts would be better," Elias whispered, stepping into the cockpit. "Ghosts don't make me nervous." Liara activated the engines, and the craft lifted into the night sky, leaving a frustrated strike team behind. Sparks from their weapons sizzled uselessly against the hoverfield. Elias leaned back in his seat, wiping sweat from his brow. "Well, we survived again. I'd call that a win, don't you?" Liara's ears twitched with a small smile. "A temporary victory." He grinned. "Temporary or not, we make a great team. Chaos and strategy. My specialty, your specialty. Perfect balance." She shook her head. "I'm still not sure if you're infuriating or entertaining." "Why not both?" he said, offering a mock bow. The craft soared above the glowing alien city, disappearing into the expanse of space. Below, the Council's agents regrouped, frustrated and humiliated. Above, two fugitives laughed quietly, their bond stronger for surviving the Council's best, using wit, improvisation, and a fair bit of reckless genius. Elias leaned back, stretching. "Next stop, somewhere they can't find us. Somewhere civilized, maybe with edible food this time." Liara smirked, her long ears flicking lazily. "Civilized, yes, edible food, we'll see." As they disappeared into the void between stars, both of them knew the hunt was far from over. But for now, they had each other, humor to soften the edges of danger, and a ship carrying them into the unknown. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a canvas of shifting colors and distant suns, as Liara and Elias piloted the small ship through the asteroid-strewn corridor of the Lysara belt. Elias yawned dramatically, sprawled across the cockpit, and muttered, "I'm beginning to think space travel should come with a nap schedule, preferably one that involves zero threats of death." Liara shook her head, her long ears twitching in amusement. "Zero threats of death, that's the human dream. We have other priorities." He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Other priorities like what? Surviving chaos, laughing in the face of death. Or maybe adopting alien pets mid-escape." "You'd probably argue that all three are essential," Liara said, smirking. "Exactly," he said, striking a mock heroic pose. "And don't forget improvisation. Vital." They drifted in silence for a moment, the hum of the engines their only companion. Then Liara reached over, brushing her fingers against a console, activating the ship's navigation hologram. "We need to choose a destination," she said. "Somewhere safe, somewhere no one will find us." Elias leaned over, squinting at the glowing map. "Safe and undiscoverable. How about a planet with beaches, sunlight, and edible local cuisine?" Liara's ears flicked, as if in thought. "Beaches are overrated. Edible cuisine is essential. Sunlight depends on the season." "You're no fun," Elias said, mock offended. "I'm trying to plan our post-apocalyptic honeymoon here." Liara laughed, the sound rich and musical, easing the lingering tension of their endless chase. "Fine, I'll consider it, but only if you promise not to get us killed by accident on the way." "Accidents are my specialty," he admitted, grinning. "But you're good at containment, like an intergalactic safety net." They drifted for hours, trading playful banter while navigating asteroid belts and avoiding Council surveillance satellites. Elias fiddled with the ship's controls, accidentally activating a holographic projector that turned him into a six-armed, green-skinned alien with a suspicious mustache. Liara doubled over laughing, her long ears twitching uncontrollably. "You're ridiculous," she said between giggles. "And you're laughing at me," he said, striking a dramatic pose. "I call that a victory." Eventually, they reached a secluded moon, hidden in the shadows of a gas giant, its surface bathed in gentle blue light. "This will do," Liara said, landing the ship on a plateau that overlooked glittering ice cliffs. "No one will find us here." Elias jumped out first, performing a triumphant twirl that nearly sent him sliding down the icy slope. Victory, survival, and maybe ice cream. Liara shook her head, smiling. You'll get your ice cream, human, once we stop falling into every possible danger. They walked side by side along the plateau, their shadows stretching across the alien terrain. Elias glanced at Liara, taking in the way her long ears caught the light.